um, 2 weeks ago was the regional strategy to meet California solid waste diversion mandates. It's right on your front website, front page. I never read it. And I was happily shocked or rewarded to read through it. And many of the things that I've been asking for is actually in this document signed March 14, 2018, so 3 years ago. Services number one, service levels for residential and commercial customers, that all businesses and multifamily complexes shall be provided with organic and recycling services. I know for a fact that, having lived in condos, and my friend that lives in mobile home parks, they still don't have green waste collection. Cart and bin sign requirements that already 3 years ago, all bins should have been labeled. I labeled our 94 houses 3 weeks ago, and the result was real rewarding. But after in the first week, many of those stickers are wrinkled and some are lifting off. So the quality of the stickers is bad. The outreach to existing residential, and I see my time is almost up, but number 4 is we need to do this. The drivers are supposed to document contamination in carts, notify dispatch, notify the customer why they didn't pick up the bin, and actually charge them. That's number B on item guideline number 4. I'd like us to, I request that this thing be discussed, this document be discussed, and educate people. Also that it says the haulers are supposed to email and send out notices. I went through all of our emails. We've never yet ever received a educational email from our hauler, and we've gone paperless, so we don't get anything in the mail regarding education. So thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, time's up. If you have any other, additional comments regarding that document, you feel free to email us. And just for my clarification, that's on the front page of our website, and that's Patty, what's that called? The regional strategy.
Regional solid waste strategy.
Yeah. Regional solid waste strategy. Okay. Got it. All right. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
I don't have any other hands raised.
Got it. Okay. Very good. Then we will proceed to our oral report from our Deputy Director, our Acting Executive Director, Patty Taves.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I wanted to go over the expenses and see if anybody in the room has any questions on the payables or credit cards. That's found in the packet. It's on page 5 through 11. If there are no questions on that, we can move forward.
You answered my question.
Okay, great.
So,
next, I'm pleased to announce that we have a new analyst position, and that's Cheryl Price. Thank you very much, Cheryl, for braving this. She's moved over from our clerk of the board, so as you might suspect, we're actively recruiting a clerk of the board.
And so in the meantime, Cheryl is fulfilling that role.
That's correct. Right. Okay. And Barbara, so kindly, has really stepped up to the plate and is helping us fulfill the role of doing the agenda packets, which I greatly appreciate it. Now, moving on to SB 1383 updates, Cal Recycle has published a new webpage that specifically is designed for elected officials. This is really critical. This page will give you an overview of requirements, jurisdiction responsibilities, discuss collection and education requirements and outreach requirements, give you a taste of edible food recovery, the procurement requirements, and capacity planning. That being said, this agency is doing a capacity planning paper procurement webinar on July 28th at 9 a.m. This webinar is critical to those 11 special districts, the 7 cities, and the county, anyone in those entities or organizations who are making paper purchases. So when you think about that, there's a lot of people. For example, Morro Bay has 22 different people making purchases. So this is directly related to SB 1383. We'll get everybody on a webinar and get them up to speed on the new requirements and the reporting requirements to the IWMA. Okay.
What is that website?
I
The
emailed
webpage.
that website to you, that link to you. If for some reason you didn't get it, I'll email it again after this meeting, so you have it at the top of your inbox.
And what is the date of the webinar again?
It's on July 28th, 9 a.m.
Already.
Right,
And so the target audience for that though is people within jurisdictions that make purchases.
that's correct. So if you're not a purchasing agent or anybody who makes paper purchases, you probably won't be invited. However, that being said, we always talk to the local task force. In your case, that would be Jordan, Honey, Jan, and they're welcome to join. Anybody's really
Yeah.
welcome to join. Okay. And again, this brings us to today's meeting. Your city manager, CSD managers, local task force staff, and again, usually it's public works staff, but in your case, Jan, it's Jordan Lee who attends. Their respective legal teams are going to be attending a Zoom meeting again at 2 to go over the draft slow mile SB 1383 ordinance that I have emailed out to each of you. Again, this is in draft form, and what's going to happen is everybody's going to get into the room. These ordinances are mandatory. They are not optional. So the nuances that everybody will have to work through, not only implementing these ordinances at their city level, but they're going to have to update their codes too. So that's particularly painful. And we have to do it over January 1st, 2022. Next up, the Prop 218 cover letter, the legal memo that Mr. Minery sent out, and a guidance document, and the resolution number 210602. Again, this was emailed out to all of you and the 7 city managers, county staff, which was Wendy Hall, John Diodati. And then anybody else who has to deal with this at the city level, we sent the email out to those folks, asked them to comment back. I haven't received any comments personally, but Mr. Minery probably has, and if he hasn't, he shortly will. And he is, and his legal team put this document together, this guidance document.
And did that go straight out, also straight out to city attorneys, or are we expecting the city managers to forward that to city attorneys?
We are expecting city managers to forward it or other participants. And given that in the email it was suggested to do that, certainly will.
Okay. And Mr. Minery, have you gotten any questions back from city attorneys?
No, no response yet.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on those documents?
They sound pretty important.
They are super important. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you do, just call, email, or
But that meeting today
That is
could get some significant response.
right.
At that meeting. Gotcha.
Next up, current outreach and education above and beyond SB 1383. Currently, it's being driven by our haulers. They really reached out to us on the battery fires. Really important topic. John Ryan, battery material recovery center, fire. We know from our haulers, and we have our one-on-one meetings with them, that these batteries are an issue when the truck compacts. They tend to explode or equipment, right? Even at our landfills, when we talk to the net at Chicago Grade, Castle Robles, and Coal Canyon, that equipment, the compacting equipment, is actually crushing those and starting fires. It's just an unbearable mess. We're lucky in this county that Bill Worrell has set up a system where anybody can take it back to any store that sells them for free. And that's a great way to get it out of the blue bin, the gray bin, the garbage bin, the recycling bin, green bin, everybody, we find them in all bins. So we're gonna be sending out this flyer. We've done some social media on it repeatedly. We're sending out email blasts and blocks so that the haulers can put it in their emails. And we're working closely with the haulers on this.
Is this our current blue bin label?
That is the current blue bin label.
I notice it's showing me what I can put in, but it's not telling me no batteries.
No batteries, that's correct.
Or
We're in the
no certain other
process
things, I
of
suppose.
actually updating all our
Plastic
labels.
bags.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does say no plastic bags, but it
Okay.
doesn't say no batteries.
Oh, no plastic bags. Okay, great. There it is.
No. And we are in the process of updating for SB 1383, all of our stickers. Kelly and the team are working on it currently. Next up, science discovery presentations. You might have guessed we're winding down on those for the summer. last week I emailed out a couple of videos that hopefully will give you a look at how well science discovery is connecting up with the teachers. You know, we don't know if the classrooms are going to be in or out, or if they're going to be hybrid classrooms or not. So this was a great instructional video on helping teachers work through the nuances of this moving forward. And then also we sent out a video that gives you a snapshot of what the team is like in front of the camera, the green screen, etc. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did, separate question related to that though, did we resolve the issue with, the space out at, Cold Canyon that science discovery team uses for education
Currently,
purposes?
it's closed. We are not taking tours out.
And right, but because it was closed, they had talked about wanting to, the landfill had talked about wanting to relocate it. I don't know if they wanted to close it or whatever, but we resolved that with them, right? When things open back up, we're gonna be able to, science discovery is gonna be able to use.
Yeah,
it.
they-
To the best of my knowledge, that's exactly where we're going to go with that. Okay, it could change, but at this point, it looks like we're going in that direction. Any other questions about that? Maybe the number of presentations my team did this year. We usually do about 800, but we did about 616 this year. So that gives you a difference what the impact of COVID.
Is that aimed at elementary school?
This is just really elementary, middle school, and some high school.
Yeah, because San Luis High, I know my grandson is going to be a freshman there next year, I mean, in the fall. And it will be in person. They don't know exactly, they may have different shifts, they don't know exactly, I mean, it depends on the science and what's really happening with the COVID at that time, but they, 12 and up can get vaccinated, and so they're really encouraging the middle school and high school folks to get vaccinated.
And I hope to see a lot more schools coming back in, but I think there's going to be some hybrid situations like you mentioned.
But the elementary school kids, it's not, they have to wait until, to see if the Pfizer is approved by the FDA, and evidently that's on their agenda, so.
But most of the districts expect to be back, 100%.
They want to try.
That's their expectation at this point in time. Yeah. Something could change over the summer, so they're still based on, even if young things can't be vaccinated, they are not very susceptible.
Right.
Okay.
Next up, our 5-year source reduction and recycling. We have to do this every 5 years. Good news is Cal Recycle, this agency produced that report. It was reviewed by the local task force. Cal Recycle has approved it and publicly announced it at Cal Recycle meeting. That's the good news. Moving forward, another piece of good news is we may not have to do this every 5 years. Given that, Cal Recycle is estimating that between 8 to 10 new reports based on this SB 1383 is going to happen, and it'll be annually for those reports. They're thinking that it's redundant. We may be able to stop doing this. So,
State agencies can recognize that report as redundant.
Whoa.
It's a landmark. So they're, but basically, there's a 5 year, it's interesting you say about report approved. I mean, you think of plans having to be approved, but they actually have to approve on reports.
they do. They actually do.
Okay,
Yes,
but
yes.
so I don't know what you would unapprove about a report. It's either factual or it's not, but it could be incomplete, I suppose. But,
Well, if you didn't turn it in, I think that would be
yeah.
Red
that
flag.
would be approved.
unapproved.
Well, or if it was incomplete. didn't
Correct.
contain certain
Or, yeah.
required fields.
It's-
But so we're looking at here a 5 year report, because there's gonna be so many new annual reports, they may recognize and do away with the 5.
Yes, that's the way they're talking. So it would be not nice. And many agencies go out and hire consultants to do these reports, right? And it's exorbitantly expensive and time consuming. So this is good news. If they can remove this one report, that would be great news.
Keeps consultants in business. Yeah.
Next up is our annual Cal Recycle annual report and the hazardous waste report. Both of these reports require a yearly. The recycling diversion report is due August 2nd, and then the hazardous waste one's due October 1st. And at first glance, these reports look like there's new regulation and new questions and new sections, but it doesn't look like it's anything that we can't manage at the agency. So that's perfectly, we're perfectly able to handle it.
And you have readily available necessary information for these reports, i.e. from haulers and landfill operators. You don't have any trouble getting that information.
Sometimes we have trouble getting information, but as I see these reports and I'm going through and I think I can get it, I can do it. So I don't see any roadblocks. Good news, yeah.
And Peg, back on that 5-year report, we have, way back when the agency created, and sometime in the 90s, you had to generate a solid waste reduction plan or whatever it was called. Does that have to be updated periodically, or once it's in place, it's good to go until?
It's good to go, as I understand it, until this JPA dissolves. Then if it dissolves, there's the potential for each new agency or branches of agencies will have to redo that.
Well, or, I mean, if an individual entity chose to leave the JPA, they would be responsible for their own new plan.
Right.
The remaining agencies in the JPA still have a plan.
Right.
Actually, no, because it's been modified.
Because the input, because the absence of the one
The
agency
borders have changed.
could affect
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
plan. That's unfortunate. Because my thought was that, okay, if somebody leaves, they're gonna have to write their own plan.
Mhm.
But you're really saying, yeah, but the remaining, the agency would still have to readdress its own plan because it would be outdated by the fact of the departure.
And the borders have changed, population densities have changed, land, et cetera. Now, first and foremost, though, if that were to happen, I would go immediately to town recycling, ask my local representative and their significant others, right? Do we really need to redo a plan here, right? First and foremost, and maybe they would say, no.
You can't count on common sense to prevail in this circumstance, but.
We would
Okay.
try.
I think
We would try.
it's important that if different jurisdictions did withdraw, that doesn't mean that the JPA is dissolved. So it's important that you, when you talk about it and you think about it, you understand that it's not dissolving what we have right now.
One agency leaving does not automatically mean a dissolution.
Right.
This body still exists, it just, and it would obviously be affected in numerous ways, but
Mhm.
so Jan's right, any comment is like, no. We talk about dissolution, that's not,
Not part of it.
like one cousin left the family still exists.
Oh, the crazy uncle, I want to get
Yeah.
rid of that. Okay.
So next, shifting gears to polystyrene. So this is a card that we've developed, and there's also a flyer right here on the table in front of you too, that might be a little easier to read. The flyer definitely is what we, and it's English and Spanish, both of these are English and Spanish. When we approach and work with businesses, this is the flyer that we want and use to discuss it. But this is a mail out. And my question to you, are you folks interested in mailing this out, or would you like to hold off?
Patty had asked me this question earlier, and I said we should basically discuss it here. There was discussion at full board meeting on this. There was a question of what this would cost, and I think it was $5,000. That would include both the creation, printing, and mailing of these to essentially all residents. Because basically.
Oh, I'm sorry, the business.
All
This is
business. This is just business.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Because it would be individual households, but this would be all businesses
Mhm.
in the county.
Well, I think it looks good to me. It does not discuss enforcement. And we did make a decision to hold off on enforcement until there was a little more clarity
Mhm.
about organization. I don't know, I don't recall the date that we were talking about, but I believe it was sometime in September. Is that correct?
And to be honest with you, I've been getting phone calls from both concerned businesses,
Mhm.
and if they still were working through, there's exemptions that they could do or not, right? For example, there's one in San Luis Obispo, brand new business, didn't know, and they have a product that is covered under this ordinance, and they just said, let me fill out an exemption, we're gonna work through what we have ordered, and then moving forward, we'll have something different.
Yeah, no, I think it's important this is education, and I think that it makes sense to get the word out.
We've got a lot of businesses reaching out to us, and, our ice wine producers up in Paso Robles have been in several meetings with them, and we are actively bringing the manufacturers and the engineers to show me different products they're trying to work with in their testing. So it's great news. They're going in the right direction. This is wonderful.
Yeah, evidently I haven't read the Colorado ordinance, but evidently the state of Colorado has done something like this statewide. And there may be other jurisdictions that have actually researched the kinds of products that comply with this ordinance. You know, and, I don't know. I think it makes sense, but let's see what the whole board says.
So you think we should, you know, have it on, just basically have this discussion at the full board meeting and show them this, you know, that I just come up with that it's ready to go if the board, I'm not, you know, we might, I don't even
Well,
want.
I don't know as to the timing. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
Right, Robert, I'm curious what you have to say about it.
There was a motion. Bruce Gibson be able to postpone enforcement for 6 months.
Mhm.
So there's our deadline, but this needs to go out right away.
Yeah, 'cause this is not, as Jan said, this is not
This is
about
education.
enforcement.
No, it's not, this is educating people on what the rules are.
And I think as Patty mentioned, they're getting calls from businesses because they, you know, they saw media-wise that the ordinance came into effect, so they're going, well, what's going on with things? So, I mean, it would seem to me that, you know, this is informative. It's not about enforcement. It's reasonable to send this out. Question, you know, do we want to, should we just have Patty included essentially in the oral report for the full board?
I think that's
Sure.
fine. I don't
Like
think it's
we did
anything
here.
to be, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
Didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
but
No, I'd say it's just part of the oral report, and it's like here, you know, it's just business as usual.
Yes.
I would reiterate though, what Jan mentioned, what that is, that you see there's nothing here about enforcement. This is educational.
Yeah.
Informing.
Well, you
We're
need
getting-
to put it before the board. I don't think you need a vote, but
Mhm.
if someone has a comment, they don't like this or that, that's the time to speak up. It can be modified in minutes.
Yeah.
So in the webinar, will this, when you're addressing the purchasing agents and all that, will this ordinance be discussed?
It will.
Yeah. So in the city ordinance, which is different from this one,
Mhm.
there is an exemption for, like, for instance, if you order something on Amazon that comes packed with polystyrene,
Mhm.
And that's an exemption in ours as well.
is it an exemption
Yes.
here? Yeah, because you can't control
Like
what
I was gonna
Like I say,
Amazon
It's not really
does
so much an exemption, I mean, you have no control over what somebody else outside the area sends
outside of the area. Okay,
something to you.
yeah, well, I think that's,
So it's definitely not included.
yeah, I should reread it. Okay,
I mean, I got a box of styrofoam, the styrofoam, you know, packed with styrofoam, and the styrofoam is wrapped in plastic, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah. so like, what do you do with it, you know?
It's a good place.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Garbage.
I mean, at this point, it's one of those things in terms of recycling, that technically it is scientifically possible to recycle polystyrene. There's things you can make from it, but it just happens very rarely in very few places.
Probably because it's quite expensive.
Yeah, that's not economically viable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy, cheap and easy to produce, and yet it's not cheap and easy. to
I
produce.
have a polystyrene coffee cup.
You do.
It's about this tall, and about this big around.
Do you drink
And
coffee? out of it?
I have, and when you have some time, I'll explain the methodology to accomplish that.
I was at a conference, League of Cities thing, you know, there was a place, anyway, they showed, you know, they take polystyrene and turn into the black pots that you buy plants in.
Yes, and
Which would be a
then,
great thing, but of course, again, the volume, you know, and where, how many places are able to physically do that?
There's
It's
a-
creating-
there's a business in India, I think it's run by a woman, that is turning it into pavers.
Mhm.
You know,
For building bricks too, right?
and they have a lot of it in
Florida,
India.
though.
I think she was in Kenya when I saw it.
Oh,
They
you
were
did?
basic, but it wasn't probably just plastics in general, they
Just
melt plastic, mix it with sand,
Mhm.
and the plastic, you know, adheres to the sand, and this stuff is quite strong.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one comment. I like the clamshell, that was one of the big issues.
Mhm.
But the other one was the coffee cups.
Mhm.
I think those were the two targeted items, and I didn't know if you wanted to maybe add it.
You want me to pop it up
Just
there?
to-
I got it.
Well,
You
it
can
says
ask
you
the
do that.
proper.
Cops and drink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just saying a visual of the location, like a visual of a
We can do
styrofoam.
that.
just another circle.
Or you could maybe put the cup in there
Sure,
with
put-
the clam
yeah,
chowder.
I just remember those two being the target.
Well,
drivers, if you
people,
will.
you know, I just have to say, in general, people are very, the customers are happy to see these businesses being responsible.
Yeah, and it's really helpful if you do see a business who is being responsible, that just as a customer speak up, especially during these difficult times.
Anyway, so
Okay.
you'll bring it up during the director's oral report, and mention, you know, that this is not about enforcement, it's about education, you're getting inquiries from businesses, so it'd be, you know, it'd be helpful to
Right.
get the information out there.
I will do that. Yeah.
So, I had a question in terms of these stickers. I would love to see them distributed in the city of San Luis Obispo, especially where the students live,
Okay,
because they're just moving in now for the next academic year, July 1st. And, well, many of them are good householders. Many of them don't have a clue, like they've always been taken care of. And they don't know about this. So is it up to us or is it up to the haulers to get the stickers to the people?
that's an excellent question. It depends on on the franchise agreement, to be honest with you.
Okay,
And each of these franchise agreements are being, in the middle of being amended, at least as we speak.
okay,
So once the ink is dry, I should be able to answer that question definitively for you.
yeah, if you could,
Is it mentioned in the model hauler agreements that have been developed that, you know, as, you know, things are updated, because, you know, calorie cycle will change something tomorrow that, okay, this is no longer valid, or you gotta add this, or something.
That's the problem.
And so that, you know, certainly over the life of a hauler agreement, there could be a need for new stickers.
and they do replace, if a bin gets destroyed or damaged to the point, you know, they do replace it, and it's my understanding that they are imprinting on the lid in the plastic itself, not a sticker, but sort of like a form stamp kind of
Right,
thing.
yeah.
It's
And
molded into the lid, which I think
embossed, or what would you call it?
Molded or in molded graphic?
Yeah, so but that, that's kind of random, and it doesn't cover everybody,
That is
you know, so.
well, things like couplings and that, and this is a significant issue in the sense of education, because to me, there's no better education than staring at it when you take the trash out.
Yeah,
You know, in other words, reminding you what's proper to do. My problem with molded graphics is, you know, if I'd gotten one of those 5 years ago, my green bin would have said, no food waste.
That
right,
is correct.
And then
That's
we turn
right.
around and that's like, no, now we want your food waste. We want you to put as much
Right.
food waste as possible in your green bin. And so it's like anything, you know, you set it in stone or you carve it in plastic,
mhm,
it's there. And now you're still gonna end up having to do a stick.
yeah, until,
True.
yeah, until it's, because, you know, really, if you watch them, it's pretty rough. I mean, these little prongs go out and turn upside down, and then they bang it back on the,
Well, I think that you'd mentioned to me that in all of our jurisdictions, you know, they're running around with a smaller truck and you see a bunch of garbage cans on back. Every week, they're all replacing trash,
That's
or
true.
they're taking them to new
Each
businesses.
of our haulers are always replacing.
And all of those should have stickers on them.
That is
Now,
correct.
you said you saw them just outside the window, you know, going by new ones, no stickers. And it's kind of like, it's hard and it's labor intensive to get them out to everybody. But you sure as hell ought to be getting them out to all of any of the new bins that go out should have new labels.
That's
It
true.
would seem logical to
And
me.
So
So
we're
you're saying-
constantly working with the haulers, and that's a staffing issue, and as we know, staffing is challenging, right? You can direct staff to do something, and the second you're not monitoring them as closely as possible, or there's a time crunch, or a variety of reasons. Maybe Joe is filling in for Bruce, right? They may not get that message, right? But we're hoping and working with the haulers that every time the containers go out, they're either stickered or in molded graphics.
good, so if you could, just, like, email me the franchise agreement that for the city of San Luis Obispo,
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay,
And
and
then-
again, it is in draft form, okay?
Oh, it isn't draft.
This is the
It's
model
draft.
we're talking
Yes,
about, your
this is
existing
draft.
one for city staff. would have that.
Right, and they're working on it right now. They're working on the
Okay,
negotiations.
so I'll look at the existing one with city staff.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
And
and-
So it-
one more
Oh,
thing,
I'm sorry,
I met with, Peter
Mr.
Cohen.
Cron, yes?
He, they are doing the lids that have this stuff molded in.
Uh-huh.
You're right, it's a problem if you change your mind. One of the things that he wants to do is have the containers all one color and just use different colored lids. And my initial reaction was, well, we've trained people to look for the blue bin.
Mhm.
But then I saw some that were all gray and had different colored lids, and it's quite clear that the blue one is the blue one. And their comment was, well, that way we don't have to have an inventory of green ones, blue ones, and gray ones. We can have one inventory of gray, smaller amount, and just use the lids. And that would also make it so that if the graphics needed to change, they're just changing the lid and not having to change the entire
The thing is,
container.
I talked with Peter Cron too, and he mentioned that, and that we
Okay.
can save X amount per,
Right,
it's the same amount of plastic in the thing, but you're only wearing one color. I don't know if you buy lids separately and install them or something, but the concern I would have, and either he acknowledged or maybe Patty mentioned in the conversation, the problem is, you go down the street, I put out all three of my bins, and the garbage truck comes by, and the lid is open.
Yeah, right,
Now tell me what color bin it is, and which garbage truck driver should stop and pick up
right.
that.
No, that's what I was.
Because the
gonna
lid
say.
is flipped open,
that's,
they're all gray.
that's easy, that's a pass, he just needs.
Yeah, maybe.
No, not everyone is gonna actually close that lid,
Yes.
you know, I mean, they don't.
Well, I just,
And I would think there'd be an operation problem for them in the sense of, wait, now I got drivers getting out, see what they all colored, which one is really the green bin, because they're all gray and the lids are flipped.
Well, that's a safety issue too, when you're getting off the truck. Anyway,
I don't know if that's, I'm sorry. go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do we need to handle this at the next meeting? No. But I was just really curious if it's a real problem.
Well, I think labeling's a real problem, but I think what Robert brought up, there was a question of whether or not, if your hauler gets down the road ordering 5,000 new bins all gray, is that something, we just,
Do we
that's
have
hauler
any-
business,
do we
let the
have
hauler
any-
do their job,
Do we
I
have
just-
any influence over that? I don't know.
Well, in each of those following agreements that are going through the amendments right now, this topic is specifically talked about. So, for example, for the city of SLO, your staff will be talking to Waste Connections directly about what they want and need and want to see in their city. So you can guarantee they're doing that. And Laura in the city of Atascadero will be doing the same. And then Rick in his agreement will be doing the same as well. So every single staff person's on the ground, and I think that there's a diversity of opinions, right? And in the end, what it boils down to, I hate to be brutal, is we have to wait till the ink's dried and what was negotiated in or not.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, because my inclination generally would be not to nitpick and get micromanage what the haulers do. But I do see a potential problem.
But ask questions. I think asking questions is good. I met with Peter Cron too.
okay.
I have to, in full disclosure, I've known him for years because his partner Kelly is in my book group. So I've known him like as a winemaker and
And he used to work at the IWMA.
nice
Yeah.
person, and he did work here like 12 years, something like that, yeah. Anyway,
Okay, well, Patty, I
So
think we
with
need to let
that,
you
I'm
finish your
sorry, with
report.
that, I'm finished with my.
Okay. Is that the last time?
Excuse me, President Verbo, may I have a moment, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so sorry for interrupting you. We have sound problems, and I was wondering if it would be okay with the executive committee if we took a short pause and tried to address these issues before you start into the next section.
Yes, is that, because I thought earlier, like right at the beginning of the meeting, I had gotten a text, I think, from Janine about, there was no sound, but I thought we were just muted, and that's why you couldn't hear us. But you're still garbled. or hard to hear?
I'm not sure if we can rectify it by perhaps bringing the camera down closer to the table, because our microphone is actually attached to the camera. I'm not sure if that will help us, but I thought maybe if we could take a short pause, we could attempt to solve it with that.
Let's do that, but yeah, Patty's gonna see about
We'll
moving
take
the
a break.
camera.
But the next, we're not here. Are we?
No, we're just here. We just
We're here.
finished, we finished
Okay.
this, we still have to do.
Okay,
consent
all
agenda.
right, and then we can turn it off.
Hopefully
Is
we're
that
back to
partially disconnected there? Ted?
I think it might be
Be
more of a
careful
distance
here.
thing, you know how, if you're not talking anyways, microphones, they can be
Oh,
very sensitive.
And maybe I should just set it on that,
Sure.
unless I want to look at your hands,
There you
right?
go. Well, of course, we don't know where
I
the
am
view
so
is. Can you
sorry.
see what the view is on your
That's actually starting to sound better, Patty. I think it was because the camera was too high.
far away?
Want to try maybe putting it on the TV?
Okay, I'll try putting on the TV.
Yeah, that might still be a little far away.
How's that?
Almost. We just don't have Mr. Burbo in frame.
That's fine.
Can you just scoot it over a little bit? Oh. Yeah, I think you got it right there.
He says right there?
We're
Yeah,
probably- Here. I'll
can we
sit
do a
right-
little bit of a sound test, please?
Test, test, test,
No,
test.
you're kind of close. Let's have Jan say something.
Okay, the moon is made out of green cheese, not blue cheese.
Yeah, it is. It's a little better, but we're just going to have to work with it for the rest of I think the meeting and try to resolve it before our board meeting next week.
I think the part
On Zoom next week.
audio for public participation purposes, so that if we, the important thing is the public can hear what we're saying and doing, not what we look like. So, we're bringing the camera down to the table so that the microphone will be more readily accessible by all of us. And so, Jan, your job is to wait.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think that's better, Cheryl.
Okay, I think that's good. We apologize to the members of the public listening. We were trying to get a better view and we, I think, harmed the audio quality. So,
I'll contact our IT and see about what we can do about sound for the next meeting.
okay, well, we've completed the oral report. And the next item on the agenda says public comment regarding consent agenda matters. These are matters on the agenda 7, 8, 9, and 10, which consist of minutes of various meetings. So I don't know if we have any public comment regarding these items 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Okay, at this time, if a member of the public wishes to make a comment on the consent agenda, you may press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. And I have nobody for public comment.
I would note, I noted 2 errors in the minutes, just really on the heading for the draft minutes of the executive committee special meetings on June 18th and June 21st. They both said they were on Wednesdays. They were actually a Friday. The dates were correct, but they were actually a Friday and a Monday on the top of those minutes. Other than that, I had no other comments. Does any board member have any comments, or does any staff have any comments or corrections on those items?
Comments or corrections? Thank you for catching those.
Then I guess a motion is order regarding the consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Right, so we have a motion by member Marks, a second by member Enns to approve the consent calendar. Can we call the roll?
Sorry, Ms. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Enns,
Yes.
and Mr. Burbo.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
We move on to our regular agenda for the executive committee, which consists of the full board agenda for next week's meeting, July 14th. So we have a draft agenda to discuss. Do we have any public comment regarding the next week's agenda.
If anybody in the audience wishes to make a comment on the draft agenda, please press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. Oh, I do have one. Patty, I'm going to unshare your screen. Okay, Janine, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just wanted to find out if indeed it was really impossible to focus and hear you guys at the first part of the meeting, and the most important part that I wanted to hear was the discussion about the polystyrene ordinance. But I would like to know if we can address or add the whole document that I raised about the regional strategy meeting to meet California solid waste diversion mandates.
What are you suggesting regarding that document, Janine?
Well, that since this document is now 3 years old, or that many of these, particularly item number 4 or guideline number 4, is not being done. That's for me, that's critical. That's that one issue that I've continued to report the violations of the blue bins, and I don't see any change. And here it's a document that was made 3 years ago. So I'm curious, and I'm asking that the IWMA board visit this document and make sure things are being done as signed or as agreed.
Well, Patty, that document is a strategy.
It is,
Which is a
and
set
it
of-
was developed by Phil Worrell.
Right.
Prior,
Point of order.
Mhm.
Public comment.
thank you.
That's right.
Right.
We
No,
don't talk in public comment.
Well, no, I understand, but sometimes we might respond to a question
Well,
from public
Yeah,
comment.
but let's let Janine have her.
Yeah, and so one more thing about the issue of the green waste bins in the parks. We had a big event with the Slow Bicycle Club last week, and there was plenty of food waste, and there was no green waste to put it in. So actually I brought it home to my bin, but this is a city park visited by a lot of people, and there should be a green waste receptacle bin. The other thing on blue bin or recycle, we should have bins where bottles and cans only can be put in, like we see at a lot of different parks, particularly the state parks and national parks, that you can't put bad contamination in the blue bin for collecting just important things like bottles and cans. So that's my request, that would be visited.
All right. Thank you for your comment, Janine. I will, because you had a difficult time hearing, I think it's relevant that we just synopsize what we were talking about relative to the polystyrene. Patty had displayed on the screen a potential flyer that would go out to businesses that are involved in the ordinance. And so we were just discussing that flyer, and that she will mention that again in her oral report next week at the board meeting, and emphasize a few points regarding it, and with the intention being that it would go out sometime after that.
And it would be purely educational.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there any further public comments from anyone else, Cheryl or Barbara?
I have no other hands raised.
Okay, all right, so then we have the agenda itself for next week, which I think, well, Robert, you have the actual copy there.
I didn't print it out.
I didn't print, I read it yesterday.
First up is the closed session, and Mr. Menery, would you mind jumping in here to discuss item number 5 and number 6?
I think if it's closed session, I'm not sure if Patty is part of that.
Right, well, it would
This is
be,
not actually a closed session right now.
right, this item would be on the agenda as a closed session item next week. And item number 5 sort of seems to correlate, or Jeff, I'm going to comment on with item number, I think it was 14
Mhm.
on the agenda. But essentially, in terms of the agenda items, Patty, you highlighted 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, and 4 were the standard
Exactly.
things.
Roll call,
Right.
flag.
So Jeff, I guess you can explain the intention behind number 5 would be to go into closed session and have a discussion on the item indicated.
Mr. Minery, are you available and can you hear us?
Interesting. I think it's pretty
Yes.
self-explanatory.
I agree.
And then, so then we would have the staff, the oral report as
Okay.
normal, 7.
And then moving on, this is the
Minutes,
consent agenda,
Okay.
okay?
12.
Number 12, you've probably not seen before in this setting. It is a Social Security Administration document. The board approved on 2 occasions to unanimously move forward with that. And this is just the final thing we're going to be having if the board approves it. Charles will go signing the documents that are necessary to make this effective.
I was a little confused as to why it needed to come again, but
Mhm.
I,
It's
I
over. The
understand
reason
how.
is we had to vote that the entire agency had to do a vote, and then once that vote was completed, then we bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Gotcha. And then,
On to the regular agenda, then item number 13 is that lease agreement between the Napomo Hazardous Waste Facility and the IWMA. This is pretty general. Interestingly enough, they wanted to extend it for the next 10 years, which is delightful, as opposed to coming back sooner rather than later. That means we're a good tenant and they like us there. This is a good location for hazardous waste. We know this because it's the second busiest location in our hazardous waste lineup now. It wasn't always like that. There's just been in the past couple of years a boom there, so much so that we've had to hire another person to man it. And then again, item number 14, as I understand it from Mr. Minery, is just an out of closed session report. Okay, and that concludes the agenda.
okay. And does the executive committee member have comment on any of those items relative to them going forward to be on the full board agenda?
None for me.
No, I did want to mention that I just sent a text message to Jeff Menery telling him that we lost him on Zoom. So,
Okay,
Okay, in that case, then, unless board members.
The next one is,
public
Yeah.
comment regarding closed session.
right,
That's why I was trying to get Mr. Minery's attention.
Well, was his intention though that item 12 on today's agenda was a discussion, would be a discussion with the executive committee regarding this litigation?
yes,
Yes.
so,
Okay, so it is important, yes.
and we have to go to close.
Right, we went for a closed session. So can we, if we go to closed session, are we going to cut off Mr. Menery?
Excuse me, President Burbo, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. Did we finish item 11? Is there a motion to accept the agenda, please?
Okay, but I
So-
thank you for the
so
reminder,
moved.
Cheryl.
I will move that we accept the agenda.
Second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you please call roll?
Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Enns,
yes.
Mr. Burbo,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we're on to item 12, and we're seeking to make contact with Mr. Menery.
I showed him on the screen here. Mr. Minery, can you hear us?
Is he muted, Patty?
I'm checking now. It doesn't look like he's muted at all.
No, he's not muted.
Okay, you texted in on his
I
phone number.
sent him a text now. I'm gonna try to actually call him. and
Yeah.
say,
Let's try calling him, and then,
I should exit.
I guess so.
What can we
How
see
do
if
we know that Cheryl is, cut the wires to the public, et cetera?
Yeah, we have to be sure.
We'll ask everybody.
But do we have a way of knowing? What we have to feel like?
He's probably in Avalon.
I guess so.
He's probably not answering his phone because he's on a meeting.
Actually, I'm in a meeting.
I can't pick up.
This is Jeff Minery. Please leave me a message and I will return your call. Thank you.
He's not charging us for time.
At the tone, please record your message. When you're finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, Mr. Minery, this is Jan Marks. We're in the
Oh,
executive.
here he is. Excellent.
Wait, sorry, I'm back.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to exit the building.
Okay, I'm so sorry, before we go to closed session, can we please take public comment?
Okay,
Yes.
right. The item on closed session is conference with our legal counsel on pending litigation, Knutson versus SLO County IWMA. Does any member of the public wish to make comment on this item before we enter closed session?
At this time, if anybody in the audience wishes to make a comment, you may press the raise hand button found at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you may press *9. I have no one for public comment.
All right, thank you.
And so, Jeff, for the report out of this, are we just going to, if there's anything
Yeah, we'll
reportable,
post it. Yeah,
we'll post it? Okay.
that's fine.
So how do we, Patty's left the room. Barbara and Cheryl, you need to cut yourself off, I guess.
Yes, I am going to make sure the audience is out, and then I will lock it because Mr. Minery still needs to be here.
Yeah,
And then I
that'll be
will exit the building. Jeff, I'm gonna make you the host.
Okay,
So all you'll need to do is just end, and then let us know when the meeting ended.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Okay. What do I need to do?
Interesting how much you can hear the street noise. All right,